The first time I saw Kaelen Vance, he was holding a knife to my father's throat. The second time, he was holding a contract with my name on it. My freedom, traded for a debt. I wasn't just his enemy. I was his property. He installed me in a gilded cage on the penthouse floor of his skyscraper, a constant, silent reminder of his victory. For weeks, I spoke only in curses, my hatred a living thing in the sterile, modern space. He would watch me, a ghost in his own home, his cold, calculating eyes tracking my every move. "You can hate me all you want, little bird," he'd say, his voice like gravel and silk. "But these bars are of your father's making, not mine." I'd turn away, staring at the city lights that represented a world I could no longer touch. I spent my days plotting, my nights dreaming of his ruin. I memorized his routines, the way he took his whiskey, neat, just like the violence he dealt. I learned the cadence of his silence, the slight limp in his walk from an old wound I wished I'd inflicted. One night, a storm raged outside, mirroring the one in my chest. The power flickered and died, plunging the penthouse into an oppressive darkness. I heard a crash from his study, a grunt of pain. Instinct, that treacherous thing, propelled me forward. I found him on the floor, a shard of glass from a fallen sculpture embedded in his palm, blood pooling dark around him. Our eyes met in a flash of lightning. The mighty Kaelen Vance brought low. I could have left him. I should have. But the sight of his blood, the raw vulnerability on his face, rooted me to the spot. This was the man who owned me. This was the man I was supposed to destroy. With a shaking hand, I reached for him. My fingers closed around his wrist, and the air crackled as if the lightning had struck inside the room. It was the first time I had willingly touched him. His skin was fever-hot, his pulse a frantic drum against my fingertips. "Don't move," I commanded, my voice steadier than I felt. He watched me, his breathing ragged, as I carefully extracted the glass. A strange, twisted part of me was fascinated by the stark contrast of my pale hands against his blood-slicked skin. This was the hand that had signed my life away. "There's a first aid kit in the bathroom," he gritted out, his gaze never leaving my face. I worked in silence, cleaning the wound, the sting of antiseptic making his muscles coil. He was a predator, allowing himself to be tended to, and the tension was a third presence in the room. "Why," he finally asked, his voice low. "You had your chance. You could have walked away." I finished wrapping the bandage, my task complete, but my hands remained on his. I looked up, meeting his stormy eyes. "A quick death from blood loss is too good for you," I whispered. "I want to be the one who ruins you." A slow, dangerous smile curved his lips, the first genuine expression I'd ever seen on his face. It transformed him from a cold statue into something alive and devastating. "Is that a promise, little bird?" My heart hammered against my ribs. In that moment, the line between hatred and something else, something terrifyingly primal, began to blur. I had just shown him my weakness, a flicker of mercy, and he had seen it. The dynamic shifted after the storm. The silent meals became a battlefield of loaded glances and veiled threats. He started talking to me, not as his captive, but as a worthy adversary. He'd ask my opinion on business dealings, his enemies, probing my mind as if it were a fortress he was determined to siege. I gave him nothing but sharp retorts and cold analysis, but he'd just smirk, as if I'd handed him a prize. "You're just like me," he stated one evening, swirling his whiskey. We were in his library, surrounded by the scent of old paper and his expensive cologne, full of fire and a hunger for vengeance. "You just lack the conviction to see it through." "I am nothing like you," I spat, my knuckles white as I gripped the arm of my chair. "You destroy for profit. I would destroy for a purpose." He leaned forward, his presence swallowing the space between us. "And what is your purpose, Alara? To see me broken? What if I told you the man who truly ruined your family wasn't me?" He slid a file across the polished wood. My father's face stared back from a photograph, but it was paired with documents, forged ledgers, secret accounts, evidence of a betrayal so deep it stole the air from my lungs. The foundation of my hatred, the very reason I was in this gilded cage, crumbled to dust in an instant. The enemy I had sworn to destroy was a phantom. The real enemy had been the man I'd called father. I looked from the damning papers to Kaelen's impassive face. The vengeance that had sustained me for months was now a hollow, useless thing. And in its place, a new, terrifying question arose. If he wasn't my enemy, then what was he? I spent the night in a numb haze, the file's contents burning behind my eyes. My entire life, my righteous anger, had been a lie. Kaelen wasn't my captor. He was my father's collateral. When the sun rose, I found him on the terrace. The city sprawled at his feet like a conquered kingdom. He didn't turn as I approached. Why? My voice was raw. Why keep me? Why not just show me this from the beginning? He finally looked at me, and the morning light revealed a weariness I'd never seen before. Would you have believed me? Or would you have thought it another one of my lies? He was right. I wouldn't have. I kept you because your father's debt was real, he continued, his gaze intense. But I also kept you because from the moment I saw you, staring at me with more fire in your eyes than your father had in his entire body, I knew. I knew you were a storm, and I have always had a fondness for dangerous weather. His admission hung between us, a confession that was neither an apology nor a justification. It was a fact. He saw me not as a pawn, but as a force. It was the most terrifyingly respectful thing anyone had ever done. The hatred I'd clung to was now directed at a ghost, leaving a void that was quickly filling with a chaotic, electric understanding of the man before me. He was ruthless, yes, but he was honest in his brutality. He had given me the truth, even when it served him better to let me live in ignorance. I took a step closer, the morning breeze whipping my hair. What happens now? Now, Kaelen said, his voice a low hum that vibrated in my bones. We decide if we are still enemies. He closed the distance between us, his hand coming up to cradle my jaw. His thumb stroked my cheek, a shockingly gentle gesture from a man of such violence. It was the point of no return. Every instinct screamed to pull away, to rebuild the walls of hatred that had kept me safe. But those walls were built on a lie. The only thing that felt real was the calloused warmth of his hand, the intensity in his stormy eyes, and the terrifying, thrilling pull I felt towards him. This was the man who had held a knife to my father's throat. This was the man who had given me the truth that shattered my world. My enemy. My liberator. I didn't know what he was anymore. I only knew that the space between us had become unbearable. I rose onto my toes, my heart a wild drum in the quiet morning. I didn't kiss him. I crashed into him. It was not a kiss of tenderness, but of collision. A clash of teeth and desperation, a transfer of all the fury, confusion, and raw, untamed need that had been building since the day we met. His arms locked around me, crushing me to his chest as he kissed me back with equal ferocity. It was a battle and a surrender, all at once. When we finally broke apart, gasping, the world had tilted on its axis. The lines were gone. There was no more captive and captor, no more enemy and lover. There was only us, two broken, dangerous people, standing in the ruins of the past, with an uncertain, explosive future stretching out before us. We didn't speak of the kiss. We didn't have to. The air in the penthouse was now thick with it, a constant, humming energy that transformed every glance into a caress, every casual brush of hands into a brand. We were two predators circling each other. The rules of our game forever changed. He started training me. If you're going to be a storm, little bird, he'd say, placing a throwing knife in my hand, you need to learn how to aim. In the private gym, he taught me how to disarm a man twice my size. In his study, he showed me how to dissect a financial sheet and find the lies. He was building me, not into a weapon for his use, but into an equal, a partner. And with every lesson, the bond between us deepened, forged in trust and a shared, dark understanding of the world. I learned the story behind his limp, a betrayal from a former partner. He learned about the childhood dreams my father had crushed. We were piecing each other back together with the very shards we'd broken off one another. One evening, standing before a Florida Sandow showing the glittering city, he stood behind me, his hands resting on my shoulders. "Your father is hiding in Lisbon," he said quietly, his breath stirring my hair. The final piece of the puzzle. The man who had started it all. I leaned back against his solid strength, feeling the steady beat of his heart against my back. I looked at our reflection in the dark glass, a united front, a dangerous alliance. A slow, cold smile touched my lips, one that mirrored his own. The hunt was no longer about escape or mere survival. It was about something far more satisfying. I placed my hand over his. "Then let's go get him." The pupil was ready. The war was just beginning. And for the first time, I was looking forward to it.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more dark romance stories.